person really coming to ask me about Islam? Do they really want to know about Islam sincerely? They want to learn more about it, or they just want to have an argument or something like that. So you want to, be conscious of what is the type of person you're speaking to, and then you'll know the best way to approach that, inshallah. And not to say that, of course, all aspects of Islam are important, but you want to start with the basics. You want to start with Tawheed. That's the number one message in the Quran that I don't think anybody would differ about. So, as Muhammad also says, for example, in a hadith, that بَلُّغْ عَنِّي وَلَوْ آيَةٍ, that convey from me even one ayah, one verse or one hadith, or however you might translate it. But if we were to take, for example, one verse from the Quran, as Allah says, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. I'm sure almost all of us, if not all of us, know Surah Al-Ikhlas, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ, that say Allah is uniquely one. He's uniquely one. And key point here, he didn't say قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ وَاحِدٌ. He didn't say Allah is one, just in general, but He's uniquely one. He doesn't, and Allah goes on to describe many attributes in Surah Al-Ikhlas of what some of that uniqueness entails. That He doesn't have a son or daughter, He doesn't have any offspring, He's not begotten Himself, etc. He's the one goal that people turn to. He is Allah, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ, اللَّهُ الصَّمَدُ لَمْ يَلِدْ وَلَمْ يُولَدْ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. That there's nothing like Him, right? لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. That there's nothing like Him, and He is all-seeing and all-hearing. So so that's just one example of, just right off the gate, one verse that anyone could use, that I'm sure even the smallest of our children have memorized this verse. Also, in terms of, and I think I already covered this last week, but obviously that we don't have a specific, type of missionary position in Islam. You don't have like a specific job called necessarily in Islam per se as a da'i. That many people that do that nowadays, that we have many da'is that take this as an official thing nowadays because there's a tremendous need for that now. But technically speaking, it doesn't fall on the burden of 1 or 2 or 5 people. It's something that, as we said, that we should all be pursuing in some way or another of calling people to the message of Islam. Also, another proof related to that is that, as Allah says in the Quran, that Allah does not destroy a nation while there's muslihun among them. That there are muslihun, people that cause righteousness in the society. That they're not just salihun, that they're just not righteous within and of themselves, but also that they cause islah, that they are muslihun, they cause righteousness in the society. So these are just some examples, and I won't dwell too much on the issue of the proofs for it being obligatory or what have you, because I think we covered a little bit of that last week, and just some of the examples I gave now. But just one rational example, even just from common sense, if you speak to this to anybody, this will make sense to them. That just commonly speaking, that if you're walking right now, we're walking around all these people, right? And if you imagine, for example, that if you were in a burning building and this building is burning down, are you really going to say that, okay, the building is burning down, everybody else is leaving, and there's somebody in this one apartment or 2 apartments that is not leaving this burning building? Are you going to say, what kind of excuse are you going to make? You're going to say, they should have known themselves, or what kind of excuse are you going to make for not telling them? Are you going to say it's obvious, they should have checked it out for themselves? The building is burning down right now. You have an obligation. You are leaving. You know the building's burning down. You know the way out. You know the escape route. But you are not telling this person that is inside, for whatever reason, that they are not running away from this burning building. So subhanAllah, when we are walking around in any society, and we see all the people around us, if we see kuffar around us, and we know that this person does not believe in La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. He does not believe, he does not acknowledge his creator, that if he dies on this belief, he is going to hellfire. Isn't this an even more dramatic or a more urgent situation, that we need to be racing after this person, chasing them down, saying, hey, there's an emergency here that I need to tell you about. So this is, even just common sense, that if we really truly believe in paradise and hellfire, and we really understand our belief, the repercussions of not believing, of course, are dramatic or are catastrophic. So this is something we really need to think about. Do I really believe in paradise and hellfire? Do I really believe that this kalimat la ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, that if I die on true iman, that this is my key to eventually entering paradise? If I truly understand this, then how would I keep this a secret for myself? And honestly, how would I just walk around as if everything is okay and not tell people everywhere I see, hey, let me tell you about Islam? So this is something very important that we need to think about. If we would save people from a human catastrophe of a building burning down or whatever, then how much more so should we be trying to save them from eternal hellfire? And that leads me to the purpose of da'wah. What is the purpose of da'wah? The word da'wah, linguistically speaking, you're saying invitation. It's an invitation. You're conveying the message of Islam. This is very important because subhanAllah, many people have a misconception that da'wah means converting people to Islam. You don't guide who you will. As Allah says in the Quran, إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ. And this was revealed to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself is not able to guide whomever as he pleases, then how much more so can we not do that as well? We don't have the power to make a person see things a certain way or anything like that. All we have the power to do is to convey the message. And that's all that we have been commanded to do. And it's something very important because as Allah says in the Quran, that says, وَمَا عَلَيْكَ إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينُ. There's many verses, but one of them is وَمَا عَلَى الرَّسُولِ إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينُ, for example. There's one ayah, وَمَا عَلَى الرَّسُولِ إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينُ. That is not all that has been obligatory or has been requested or commanded of the Prophet ﷺ, of the Rasul, is al-balagh al-mubin, that the clear conveying of the message. And very important, clear conveyance of the message. So there's no hiding, there's no secrets, there's no lying or anything like that. You're conveying the message as it is. And alhamdulillah, if you know your belief system very well, there's nothing to be embarrassed or to be hiding in the first place. So again, that's something very important, that you are conveying the message and Allah guides whom He wills. It's not just the issue of if I show him a million or her a million scientific proofs or this proof or that proof, then automatically that's a guarantee that they're going to become Muslim, for example. That's definitely not the case. And many people at the time of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, some of the people that were most affected by the Quran died on kufr. One of them, for example, he was one of the most famous poets in Arabia at that time, and I don't want to get his name wrong, but I believe him to be Walid bin Mughira, and I might be mistaken on the name. But the important thing is that he was the most famous poet during that time of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and he was so affected by the Quran, and it just blew his mind. And at the same time, he still continued to be a kafir and still continued his attacks on Islam, etc. So the issue is not just that you are telling the person about Islam, but also that there's an issue of free will, that this person is making a choice, but there's also that Allah's permission is required for this as well. That does Allah give their permission that for this person to be guided? That's also very important as well. So you are doing your part in conveying the message, and now it's between that person and Allah. They have the free choice to make that decision, and also if Allah wants to guide them, He might and He might not. So there's multiple factors involved. That's something very important to remember. As you know, that even some messengers will come on the Day of Judgment and not a single follower behind them. Not a single follower behind them. They were a prophet or a messenger. So how amazing of a job were they doing in conveying the message? But certain people will not respond and certain people will. So this is in terms of what is the objective of da'wah. Again, the objective is da'wah. The objective is calling people to Islam, where that's all you are able to do is convey the message clearly. Also, and a note related to that actually is that, as I said, the issue is not just the intellectual one of knowing that this is the truth or not the truth, but is a willing person to accept, is a person willing to accept that truth. And a lot of times, these will be the same people that come up to you with, they want to talk about the most minute issues or the details, is that they know that it seems like it's the truth, but they know that this seems like it requires a lot of effort from me. This seems like it requires some work, some change in my life, some change in my lifestyle. This changes my whole worldview, my whole lifestyle and practices, and this is not an easy decision to make. So many people are not willing to make that decision specifically for that, not just because they don't believe that it is the truth or it's not the truth, but they might even know for a fact they have complete belief that it is the truth, but they don't want to accept it. And that's the decision that they're making. So it's something we need to realize. Again, it's not an issue of just intellectual convincing. So, in terms of some just obvious or just general recommendations that could be given, the number one is the doctor method in terms of giving da'wah, of listening. Something very important. Sometimes, especially if you do da'wah for a long time and you hear the same types of remarks or what have you, and you want to cut the person off, and it's tempting to maybe cut the person off right in the middle of a sentence. You think you know exactly what they're going to say. Let the person speak, and this is something very important, because each person is different. So you need to see, like the doctor does. He waits to see what is your issue, what's going on in your life, to understand how he can best help you. So similarly, you need to have good listening skills in terms of seeing what the issue is or what the type of person this person is, so that you can customize your dialogue to that person. Also, as I said, the number one thing to use, the most obvious thing to use in terms of giving da'wah is the Quran itself. Not necessarily, doesn't mean you're gonna just spit out Quranic verses and start reciting to them every surah or ayah of every verse in the Quran, But you are using the logic that Allah has already put in the Quran. He's telling you, they'll say to you this, say this. He'll say, this type of person will say to you this, you say this. So you don't have to quote the verse per se, and it's probably going to look very weird if you do, but if your whole discussion, you're just saying, you're just reciting Quran to them, you want to have, a normal conversation, but use the rationale that Allah has already provided us with in the Quran. Also, having correct timing is something very important. Choosing a good time where a person is not, necessarily in a rush and they just want to, get the conversation over with, so that you're in a calm environment, that you're able to talk in peace and tranquility. And as they say, familiarity breeds contempt. So, to space out the dawah. If you're going to see this person at your job many times or whatever it is, you don't have to, spit it out all at once. You might, mention something one day, something else another day, and space it out. Also, something a very wonderful recommendation, inshallah, is one-on-one. Try not to do a group or entire necessarily lecture or what have you, and necessarily that's the only way to do dawah. Some people think that it has to be like a giant lecture and that's it. Honestly, some of the best ways also to have a one-on-one conversation in an informal setting, not even necessarily at the mosque, maybe just at a coffee shop or something, and talking to someone generally about Islam in an informal way. This also prevents groupthink, because if you talk to a group of non-Muslims, for example, and that, that one of them says so-and-so, the other one will say, yeah, I'm going to say what he says. Very commonly, very few people think independently, so if they hear one argument or one rejection, they'll just go with the crowd of that popular person in the group or the cool person in the group or what have you. So, if you can speak to someone individually and let them think for themselves, and subhanAllah, you speak to them in a calm manner and explain Islam to them and let them actually think about it. Also, not intruding on someone else's dawah. SubhanAllah, this happens many times, and a very practical point of benefit to be careful of is that sometimes you have someone talking to a non-Muslim about Islam, and a whole group gathers around them, like a bunch of falcons are about to come down. It scares the person sometimes, that a whole group starts circling around them, and they start, oh, did you tell them about the so-and-so, and did you tell them about this, and the person is trying to tell them about Islam, and you have like 10 people butting in, don't forget to tell them about that miracle in verse 67, and just let the person talk, everybody do their own thing or what have you, so the person feels relaxed. But if they feel like they're being attacked from every angle, this obviously is not the best method of dawah. Also, in terms of catering to your audience, in terms of customizing who you're speaking to. So, if be conscious of the person you're speaking to. This goes back to listening. So again, you're not going to speak to, an 18-year-old atheist as you would to a 60-year-old, hardcore fundamentalist Christian or whomever. Or, the people have different beliefs, so you approach people in different ways. So this is something very important: the characteristics of the person that is being called. Also, in terms of the person, of the characteristics of the caller, obviously this is obvious from some of the ayat and hadith that I mentioned already, but of course using wisdom, knowledge, gentleness, and just overall general good manners in terms of how you present the material. Because of course, a lot of times how you present the material is sometimes more important than the material itself. So sometimes you have to be conscious of that as well. So, I'll spend a little bit of time really just taking it from square one, you could say. A very brief, you could say, summary of just the average person that, not necessarily average person, because it's hard to say who's average, depends where you are, but in terms of let's say a complete atheist. A complete atheist comes up to you, and this person comes up to you, and this happens many times, especially on a college campus, and they start, coming to you with all these crazy theories. So really just keeping it very simple, a lot of times just one of the easiest ways, is just very like a three-step process. Number one, there's a creation, or there's an existence. There are things, I think that we would all agree, even you and this atheist, for example, you would all agree that there is a death. There is a death that is going to happen. So the question becomes, why am I here? If there is a death, then why am I alive in the first place? If I'm just here to just eat and drink and sleep and then die and that's it, that's a very depressing lifestyle. So, one would think that hopefully, as a rational person, you would ask, maybe once in your life, why do you think we're here? That's a wonderful question to ask. What is the purpose of life? And let them answer. See what this person says. What do you think? What is the purpose of life? You might say, I don't think there's any purpose of life at all. I think everything just happened by accident. Of course, I'm sure you've heard this before. Everything happened by accident, the Big Bang Theory, etc. So obviously, there's a number of problems with that theory. Number one, obviously, we know that science in general is a human endeavor. Any type of human empirical science, philosophy, all of this is a human attempt to find out knowledge about something. That's something very important. So it could be right, it could be wrong with anything that is part of human attempts at finding out anything, in terms of the empirical research or philosophy or whatever. That's number one. Number two, if we take this theory, for example, obviously this theory in and of itself, there's a reason why it's not called scientific fact. There's obviously a lot of other, many academics and scholars that refute this theory. They refute Big Bang Theory, refute evolution, Darwinism, and many scholars don't feel that the evidence behind it is that strong to begin with. It's not rigorous research, and there's many problems with the theory in the first place. But bottom line, we weren't there. So really, to really take it from square one, this person that's coming to you, you say, okay, you have a theory about how this world came about, you've researched it, you think that this is a good theory, that it makes sense to him, obviously, that Big Bang or whatever, or that we came from monkeys, etc. So, this is their theory. Okay, let me tell you about what we have here in Islam. Well, you know your theory. Obviously, he knows this theory very well, and he's convinced, or at least he's convinced it's the best theory he's heard about of how we got here and how human beings came to existence, etc. So tell him about the Islamic concept of Adam and Eve and paradise and hellfire and our purpose in life, etc. Very straightforward. You don't have to go into all, philosophical rhetoric and all this kind of stuff. Very basic. There's an entire universe here. Some people have certain theory about how it came about, Big Bang or whatever it is. We have in the Quran that Allah created Adam and Eve, created Adam with his own hands. So obviously he didn't come from a monkey, to kind of give a very rudimentary or vulgar version of the Darwinism or what have you. But to make a long story short, okay, let me tell you about Islam. Obviously he knows this theory very well. Let me tell you about Islam. And just tell him about the basics of Islam, the 6 articles of faith, what is Iman, something very important. So tell them about Tawheed, tell them about the 6 articles of faith, 5 pillars of Islam, and that's it. So a lot of times, don't get caught up in the side issues. This would be the number one, simplest, and easiest advice to give to anyone, is to not get caught up in the side issues of the minute aspects of Islam, or even the minute aspects of philosophy or whatever it is, but go straight into, let me tell you about a little bit about Islam. And that's it. And from that point, they're free for themselves to research on their own, read the Quran, more importantly. We can talk all day, but just read the Quran for yourself and see what you think. Does this seem like this is the will of God? Does it seem like this is, what Allah wants from us? Read it for yourself. So all you're doing, again, as I emphasized, you're conveying the message of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. You're not there to, make sure that this person converts or doesn't convert. That's not in your hand to begin with. So, أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. والله أعلم.